through our and now I hand over to our president, IAM President Kiran Bandi. So we will take you through the welcoming you all for this event. Sit back and enjoy.
Thank you, Mukund. Can you go to the next slide, please? Mukund. Yeah, today's agenda is I'm going to just give a quick overview of IAM. Then we would request Ram Uncle to speak about International Yoga Day. And then we will have Prabhaji speaking about yoga and Ashtanga yoga, followed by Maithili ji's yoga poses, and then pranayama breathing by Sushmi ji, and meditation by Arvind Naik, and finally Ayurvedic and medicine by Dr. Asavari Manvikar. That's our agenda for today. Hopefully, we'll be able to wrap up everything in the 2 hours we have. Next slide, Mukund. I just want to take a couple of minutes or less than that to give a quick overview of IAM. I'll keep it really brief. I'm Kiran Bandi. I'm the president for 2021. We also have some of our board members here on this call. And Mukund, can you go to the next slide, please? About IAM. IAM has been established in 1973 as a nonprofit, started to build strong and cohesive community of Asian Indians to represent Indian diaspora to society at large, serve as a focal point representing 80 plus organizations and over 50,000 Asian Indians for advancing cultural, charitable, academic, political, and professional interests of Asian Indians, 50,000 plus Asian Indians in our great state of Minnesota. Our three pillars are culture, charity, and connections. And all of our events, initiatives are focused on these three pillars. Next one, please. Quick, some things about IAM. All of IAM board members are volunteers, as called out. IAM is an umbrella organization networking with 80 plus Indian nonprofits and local communities in Minnesota. And our 2021 goal is strengthening our community connections and corporate partnerships. And I think, can you go to the next slide, please? Our key events are listed here. Today we are going to be observing the International Yoga Day, and soon coming up would be India Fest on August 14th, where I hope you all will be able to participate. Before I hand over to Ram Uncle, I want to thank all of our partners who came in to organize this event. So Ram Uncle, over to you.
Namaste.
Fox, can you go to the next slide, please?
Namaste.
My name is Ram Gada, board member of IAM. We are celebrating in a way, or we are demonstrating on an EU Yoga International Day. The day actually is tomorrow, June 21, which was started or declared by United Nations in 2015. But yoga practice in India from centuries is going on by all different religions. Yoga is also the prime. Today we are going to demonstrate. Tomorrow we have several sessions which you should join. But yoga is not just for one day. This is just the starter point to get you interested in it. Yoga, meditation is like a daily thing. Just like you need the food and rest and so on and so forth, yoga is for you for every day. As you will see when these esteemed speakers will show you the significance of yoga. Yoga not only helps you physically, but also mentally and eventually spiritually. This should become a part of one's life. Many people are practicing from years to, from years. And those who start right now, they can continue to do that. I think yoga is not just the asanas. Yoga is much more than. Yoga is knowing yourself, connecting with yourself. physically, mentally, and spiritually. So with this short intro, I will assure you will listen to these esteemed speakers as well as practice. There are so many yoga lessons are going in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and worldwide. It's going on, and yoga and meditation, of course. And I think you will know what yoga is all about, what you know yoga asanas are about, yoga breathing pranayama is all about, meditation is all about. And this year we are adding one more element, which is Ayurvedic medicine, which is also very important part of one's life, alternative medicine to allopathy. So with that one, enjoy. Thank you very much for participating. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ramgod uncle. Thank you, all of you, for kicking this off. I am going to be presenting something about yoga and especially Stang Yoga. As I know, as all of you, I am also a student actually, so it's a journey. Don't think that I am expert. We have to derive really at the end the education, the learning, the knowledge from within. I think I could have probably better titled it Yoga and Expression of Wisdom as I learn more about it. So I am going to talk about the Stang Yoga also, as well as a little bit from Gita. So you can all see the screen and you can hear me all right? Give me a thumbs up, somebody. Bundy, yeah, sure, thank you. So let me go to, so I'm going to talk about briefly what is yoga, from Gita perspective, as well as Maharshi Patanjali perspective, then the 8 limbs of yoga, and then yoga and Gita, and then I'm going to attempt in conclusion, and one final last slide or last word. Okay, so there are 2 meanings of yoga that I have picked up, Yujur Yoga, and the second one is Yujur Samadha. So a lot of material packed in only 10 or 12 slides, but I'm going to try to unpack for you. It's all done by me anyway. So Yujur Yoga. So there the meaning is the union of the two. So what are those 2 entities really? So from the Vedas and as well as Gita, the teaching of Vedas can be broadly categorized into 2, Gyan and Karma. So what are Gyan and Karma? Gyan is knowledge, as you know, Karma is action, effort. But Gyan also, points to something subtle, intangible, non-matter, internal, non-physical, abstract, so to speak, like mind or spirit. Whereas Karma is something gross, something sthul, tangible, matter, external, physical, like body in our case. So let me try to explain, with a couple of examples. So the idea is that when Gyan and Karma, meaning something subtle and something gross, if we can identify for any effort we do, anything that we see in this world, any action, any effort, any endeavor that we embark onto, if we can create the alignment, the congruence between the 2, then the chance of success, becomes higher. So as an example, let me pick up, the freedom movement of India from the recent past. As we all know, Gandhi really invoked non-violence. So non-violence was the subtle piece, the knowledge piece that he had a firm conviction in. And his action part was really no action, that is non-cooperation or the civil disobedience. So he thought that, if 330 million people, the current population really was India's population during time of independence, if they did not follow the orders of only, I don't know, 100,000 people from British, from England or so, how would they run the country? Because the Indians are the policemen, Indians are, the station masters, the bankers, the post office workers, the teachers, the sweepers. And that's what it did. So that's how, Gyan and Karma, or the something subtle and something gross, came together, leading into the freedom for India from the British. From a mundane example, gift giving. If you have to really give a gift to somebody, then the gross part is that you will go to the market, to a store, you buy, you wrap the gift, But the subtle part is that you will think, oh, if it is for grandma who likes reading, then you perhaps will buy a book. Or if it is for a kid, you will buy a toy. Let me pick another example, marriage between the two people. So the external thing is that, we have to really, rear for the kids or provide for the kids, send them to school, drop them at the swimming lessons here, there, whatever we do, right? We buy the house. Now, the subtle part is that we live for each other, the two people that are in the union. So that's the subtle part. And if we create the agreement, the congruence between the subtle part and the gross part, then that's where the success is more likely, as I said earlier. So I'm going to come back to Gita near the end once again, but then let me go into the 8 limbs of yoga that was given by Maharshi Patanjali, maybe 2-3 centuries prior to BC, 200-300 BCs, I think. And I'm sure you have heard all 8 of them. So I'm going to go one by one. Yamas are the don'ts, abstentions of life. And there are 5 of them. And by the way, abstentions should be really, from thoughts, words, and deeds. Mansa, vacha, karmana, as I'm sure most of you have heard of it, if not all. So ahimsa is non-violence. The simple thinking is that, if we can't provide a life, we can't really make a life, then we are not entitled to take a life, right? So, and then also, if you consider yourself no different from anybody else, then you are not likely to commit hinsa. So that goes into Advaita, meaning there is no other. Then Satya is non-falsehood. So, Socrates is one well-known philosopher who really gave up his life in Greece for truth. So he really advocated for truth. Now also, when we really go after the truth, they're just saying Satyam Buryat Priyam Buryat Na Buryat Satyam Priyam. Speak the truth. But the last part is Na Buryat Satyam Apriyam. Try not to speak a truth that is bitter. Third one is Aste, which is non-stealing, straightforward. Gandhi did mention an example there saying that if you are paid for 8 hours in the office and if you gossip for a couple of hours, that is also stealing. So abstain from that always. Brahmacharya is, something that takes you towards Brahman, God, the supreme, so to speak. So how do you do that? And there are several obstacles that come in the way, the happiness, comfort, property, asset. So the idea is really to learn about the dharma so that you can stay on the path to Brahman. The very narrow interpretation of brahmacharya is the celibacy status also. Aparigraha is non-hoarding. What does it mean? So try to really, hoard only for your current needs and maybe near future projected needs. Don't think of the whole life. So that's what aparigraha is. At least it should not be to the point that it causes harm to somebody else. And so this is all about self-control. By the way, the first one, ahimsa and aparigraha, non-violence and non-hoarding, are big in Jainism. And Ramgada uncle is here. Now, second limb is the do's, the niyams. And they are shauch. Shauch is cleanliness. Cleanliness should be external as well as internal. And there is a saying, cleanliness is next to godliness. So external is, it's the food, the drink, the environment, everybody you come across, whereas the internal purity could be really the purity of thoughts. What is that? That comes from the Jnana Yoga, rise above the dualities, start treating pleasure and pain alike. There is a couplet that comes to mind, Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi, jo sukh mein sumiran kare, dukh kahe ko hoy. I think it's by Rahim. So the straightforward or literal translation is that people try to remember God when they are in sorrow, but not when they are happy. If they really remember God during their time of happiness, then why would sorrow really come back? But that is not, I think, the gist of it, because sorrow, pleasure and pain, they are a part of life. black and white, light and dark. They will always come. As a matter of fact, one does not exist without the other, right? So therefore, the idea is to rise above. So you become equipoised, basically, to both the dualities in all walks of life. Second one is santosh, satisfaction. And I'm going to really share the principle of three. According to principle of three, everyone is number two. What does that mean? You pick any attributes, pick wealth, the riches, or the beauty, or the height, or the education, anything that you pick, So you are always number two, meaning there is somebody always ahead of you. And that person will make you humble, meaning you will not gather ego. Now, somebody will be at number three also below you. So that will give you the sense of accomplishment. So that is principle of three. And so it drives santosh from both directions. Tapa is the third one, that's endurance. You try to build your body, and we are going to have sessions as was pointed out, in terms of some of the physical practices, pranayama included. And then also we will have so yoga, pranayama, and what's the third one? Meditation as well we will have. So food for your mind or soul. Swadhyaya is the fourth one. Swadhyaya is like, never give up learning. No matter how old you are, how young you are, always be a willing student. So try to be in the habit of reading good books or good talks, or be in company of good people, satsang. Last one in the niyam is Ishwar Pranidhan, that's devotion. So be egoless. How? So Ishwar Arpan Buddhi and Ishwar Prasad Buddhi. So what is Ishwar Arpan Buddhi? Nothing is mine. That's the bhav, that's the feeling that we should have. Ishwar Prasad Buddhi is that, whatever happens in the way of result, whenever we do any karma, any effort, then you accept what transpires. So sweet is thy will, right? Because not everything is in our control. Only part of the input is in our control. One of the sayings, one of the hadiths from Islamic faith I stumbled on is that before going to bed, you think, have you done something good with your two hands? So niyams are following the self-discipline. Okay, asanas, we are going to go through that actually in this session. Patanjali, Maharshi Patanjali, he did not talk about the 84 postures of body. He simply said Sthir Sukham Asanam, to my knowledge. So so that means take a position in which you can be comfortable, really, for a reasonable amount of time. And you can change that position also after a while. So just what provides you Sukham. So take that posture. Pranayam is, the ayam of pran. So ayam is the control. Pran would be the life energy, life force. So how do we accomplish that? We have Purak, Kumbhak, Rechak. So inhale, exhale. Okay, so these are about breathing techniques, and we will learn about pranayam also. Pratyahar. Pratyahar is, the control of consumption is kind of a discipline also. They're all disciplines. It is also a test of the first four that we went through. So one of the things that, I have learned, and I see Dr. Vikram Patarkine also in the audience, eat only when you're hungry. How simple it can be, just one rule to follow. Or speak only when necessary. How about really, restricting just 1 hour, devoting 1 hour to WhatsApp these days, right? An example that I have here, when Indra, he became afraid of Arjun because he was on his tapasya, for a long-term tapasya, that he might take over, Indra's empire. He sent Urvasi, the dancer, to him to really, distract him. And Urvasi, being scantily dressed, appeared at, Arjuna and said, I want to have a son like you. And being a Kshatriya, it was his dharma to really, satisfy her. So he said, okay, he made the promise he will do that. But once he's asked, he wants to have a son with him, then he said, no, that is not something that I would do. But then how did he handle? He said, you can do one thing. You can adopt me, meaning Urvasi can adopt Arjuna, and then she will have a son exactly like Arjuna, he himself actually. So that was the test. Dharna. With dharna, we are now moving inward. All those things were kind of outwardly in nature to some extent. Now dharna is now concentrating on one object. So in real life, how does it translate? Put your focus to one goal. My father used to say, "Ek hai sadhe, sab sadhe, sab jaye." So, try to control one and others will come to you. You will develop control. With dharna, you are in the zone. Zone of what? So zone of dhyan, zone of meditation. So meditation is dharna for extended period of time. And there are different techniques to really practice meditation. One of the techniques we will learn from Arvindji later on in this session. I have also developed a couple of techniques. Let me share
Jai
one.
Sitaram, Radha. Jai Sitaram.
If you can,
Yes, I'm here.
you can mute yourself, please, if you're not speaking. So, there are different techniques, right? So one of the techniques that, I have developed or I do sometimes, and I practice few techniques, including from the science of spirituality. So, I have a, what do you call that? Open area on the second floor. And that's where I meditate usually. And then I have my chandelier hanging from the ceiling. So I find myself at the ceiling and then watching my body. So in a way, I have tried to combine this concept of Gita or concept of, this existence of Atman that is really the quintessential basis for all the discussions around Hinduism, right? So that, that I am residing there and watching my body. So that's, so again, so that's, one of the ways, but there are many different ways, to do that. Now, Samadhi is merger. So what does, really it mean? So when you're in meditation, the object of meditation, the meditator, the process of meditation, they all merge into one. It's all becomes one. Meaning only, only one thing shines through, maybe the object shines through. So that's when you are in Samadhi. And, so you're all three coming together, all of everything coming together, meaning, you dissolve with the one, you meditate to merge, you are liberated. The ego disappears, identities vanish. Okay, so let me come to yoga in Gita. As I said in the beginning, yoga is to me an expression of wisdom. And I think that's how it has been used in Gita throughout. And also by Maharishi Patanjali, I would say, based on, my understanding. So Gita talks about 4 different yogas, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. You might see them differently in the beginning as you're starting out, your journey, so to speak, let's say, you might see some differences, but as you make progress, you will see they start overlapping and then you will see agreement. As a matter of fact, they are the same at the root from the very beginning itself. And very briefly, of course, Karma Yoga is, the 247, chapter 2, verse 47 from Gita, Karmanyevadikaraste. That reminds me a story I read in the Museum of Gandhi at Durban. H.G. Wells, who is a famous author, he was tasked by England to put together a constitution for human rights. And by the early last century, early 20th century, by the time Gandhi has earned himself a name for himself, he wrote to Gandhi asking for his advice about human rights. Gandhi wrote him back, "We have rights to our duties only. Humans have rights to our duties only." That is Karma Yoga, meaning we do not have right to the results. And that's a very different perspective coming from 247 from Gita, Karmanyevadikaraste, Mafale Sukadachana, very well known verse. Dhyan Yoga is meditation. And Dhyan Yoga also includes really, the self-discipline. Consume only what's necessary to sustain your body, as I was saying earlier in one of the limbs there, right? So Bhakti Yoga is devotion, Jnana Yoga is rising above duality. There are different ways to explain Jnana Yoga. Now, I also see Dhyan Yoga as the conduit among all those yogas. So let me try to, conclude here. So first thing that, we should be paying attention to our body health. And that is, via food, exercise. The logo of AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Science, says Sariram Abhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. That means, a healthy body is necessary, is veritably the means, sadhan means for dharma, for our duties. So one of the practices that I do is that I do keep a 12 to 18 hours gap between the last meal of the day and the first meal of the next day. Typically for 15, 16 hours is what I practice. Now I added a little bit in parentheses, certainly financial security. What happens now if you are financially, you're not secure, if you're worrying about, then it's hard to give pay attention to other things. So try to work on that. Then mind health. How? Swadhyaya I mentioned, basically the discipline of learning, restrain, regulate, control, morality, meditate also on a daily basis for the mind health. And then of course, additional focus, because we all are different creatures, so to speak, in that sense, meaning, sometimes we'll have backache or sometimes vision problem or something. And, or we might suffer from greed, jealousy and all that. Try to work on that as those problems crop up. So, okay. Also in the living, live close to nature, don't be just relying on AC, open your windows, get the light, get the natural air, try to move from without to within, from nature to body to Shunya, that is vacuum. Enjoy the eternal journey. Very quickly here, Ramana Maharshi, I put there, he was like last 17 years of his life, he was mourn, he was silent. So what it means, Aham Brahmasmi is one of the Mahavakya or great sentences of Vedas. The final learning has to come from within. Of course, we learn from many Swamis, many Gurus, we learn, they all are good for us. But at the end of the day, one has to realize and develop the knowledge that is good for himself or herself. Now, my last slide, we hear so many people, we have friends, we have family, we have Swamis, we have Gurus, so many Swamis flock, from India every summer here, right? And they're all good. They all teach us really very, very valuable things. They're all good. But then, you hear about some selflessness, the karma yoga, or equipoise, or devotion, so many ego, karma, all these theories. What do we do, right? So I put all those things in a funnel that you see in the front of the screen there, and out or down came a word called disown or detach. So if we start disowning the things in life, the relationships, the wealth, the education, whatever we have, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that I'm going to separate or not worry about my wife or my kids, right? So the idea is that you put your effort, you do your duties, but be a drashta, be an observer. And that's it for me. And then I don't know whether we have time left, a minute or two, I can take a question or two. Otherwise, you can always call me. I have my email and phone number on the first slide. And most of you know me. Thank you. Any questions, anything? Anything that was not clear, did not come across well?
Very nicely presented, Prabhatji. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Yes, I would say the same, Prabhatji. It's difficult to communicate all this in such a short time, and you did it very well. So thank you for presenting.
All right, so with that, then we'll move on to next one. And next one is Maithliji, I think, for yoga.
Okay.
Is that correct? I'm just verifying, Mukund.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhatji, and it was very informative. And I will move on to our next speaker. That's Maithili Chari.
Okay. Can you see me? Because I cannot see myself. Will they be able to see me demonstrate, or how does that work?
Yes, we are able to see you, Maitreji.
Mukund, if you stop sharing your slide, we can only see then pin Maithili on the screen, then it'll be clear.
Yeah, then I'll be able to sleep myself. Yeah.
Good, can you say, yeah, thank you.
How about now?
Okay.
We are going to practice some also, right?
Yeah, I was going to just do it like a 30-minute demonstration. Does that work? Can you see me?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can see you, Maitreji.
I can see
Okay,
you.
okay, so, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just talk as I do some basic yoga poses, and I will do it till, for about 25 minutes or so. I usually have standing poses, breathing as well, but I'm going to cut out the breathing part because I think we have Shushmi doing the breathing part. Okay, so let's all, if everybody is able to practice with me, I'll just do some of the basic poses. Let's all come to a comfortable seated position and try to center yourself. Close your eyes if needed, and just regulate or watch your breathing. Inhale and exhale. Inhale again and exhale. Gently lift your arms. Keep your hands, your fingers pointed, and then tick-tock to the right and left. And right and left. Release your arms and roll your shoulders. Bring your left hand to your right knee. Bring your right hand behind your spine and lift your spine and twist. And continue breathing at a steady pace. And then back to center. Right hand to left knee, left hand to the back, lift and twist. And back to center. Usually I try to do some basic yoga poses before I do my meditation, or at night when I want to relax myself, or at the beginning of the day when you want to clear your mind and focus better. So any of those times are good for a basic practice. It's amazing how a little bit of yoga every day, as Ram Gadaji pointed out, it should be part of our routine. And the more and more I find that when I feel centered and focused, it allows us to move into other realms of meditation and spirituality and do our studies for spiritual development, and in general also to live our lives without too much of stress, because we have so much stress coming from us from all parts of our lives. Next, I want to go to balancing your spine and improving your core. So we'll just do our usual cat and cow positions. Inhale and exhale. Tuck your tailbone underneath. Inhale again. And exhale. Do this at your pace about 3 or 4 times to release your spine and feel, kind of that relief from the tension in your shoulders, in your back. Find this. Can you hear me now? I don't know why I got muted. I hope you can hear me. So now you can lift your right hand and your left leg and straighten. This I find is very useful for improving your core and helping you stay with a strong back. If you have a strong back, it helps you stay youthful, and it helps you dance. Left hand and right leg. And try to lengthen your neck, the back of your neck as well. Again, right hand, left leg, and then left hand, and then right leg. If at any time you feel like this is too much or you can't do anything, remember yoga is about your comfort, and it's about you feeling better at the end of the 10-minute practice or the 30-minute practice. You can go into child's pose. The tops of your big toes touch. You can go down and put your forehead on the floor.
We lost Maithili's voice.
Ji, we are not able to hear you. Can't hear you, Maithili ji.
You may have to log out and log back in. That's the one, sometimes only way it works. Then we will lose a minute or two, but if nothing else works, then you can try that, Maithili ji. Oh,
No,
you
we're not
can't hear
able to
either? Oh, she can't hear us either. Okay, send down a chat.
No,
Mukund ji.
she's saying she can hear us, but we can't hear her.
Okay. So Maithili ji, if you want to log out and then log back in, sign back in, zoom in, that might work if nothing else. And unless somebody has another suggestion.
Meditation, we should sit quietly.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Oh, good. I don't know why that happens. Anyway, okay, as I was saying, I'll just go through the Virabhadrasana 1, 2, and 3, that is warrior pose. And many of you are familiar with this. This one I really love because I feel that it balances all our chakras. So bring your right foot in front. Your left leg is at an angle. And then just lift your arms and relax. So you should feel that hip kind of twisting, and you can just breathe here. This is warrior 1. Virabhadrasana 1. Basic pose, but it really does help us open up all our chakras and just, help us kind of gain that equanimity and that equipoise that we talked about for yoga. And breathe. Now go to warrior 2. Allows us to control our emotions, even our hunger sometimes. And breathe. This is warrior 2. When we go here, I try to do a side angle pose, lean and tilt. Then we'll go to warrior 3. Look in front of your right leg, bring your left leg back, and we'll go to our first balancing pose. but you just lift your leg. Let me just go back a little. I hope you can see me. Lift your leg to an airplane pose or an inverted T. And breathe. Balance is another thing that's really important in our lives as we get older. A lot of us can fall and then it'll really not be good for the quality of our life. Back to warrior one. And back to Tadasana. Okay, we'll do all this on the other side as well. Left leg forward, warrior one, Virabhadrasana one. Sink and lower. Then we'll go to warrior two. And side angle. And now we'll look down at our left foot and go to Virabhadrasana 3, warrior 3. Breathe and release. Let's lift our heads up and bring our hands down. And look up. And look down again. See if you can put your hands underneath your feet. Like this. So it releases the tension on your shoulders. And just shake your legs and hands. And try to straighten your knees. See how it pulls on your hamstrings. This is a great hamstring stretch. And breathe. Okay. Now let's come to Malasana. Right here like this. So let's sit squat like this. This is a great pose for opening up our hips and helping us to squat. When we are in meditation, these poses are so important. It'll help us keep a straight back and we can focus better. Bring your right hand to your right leg or right foot and lift your left hand up and twist, opening your chest. And breathe. Hands together. Bring your left hand down and right hand up and twist. And breathe. And back to center. And come on up. We'll do one more balancing pose. Balance is so important that my daughter, who is an ENT surgeon, a lot of times we get dizziness and earache and all that. So practicing balance, she says, actually helps you retain your hearing better. And you will actually see improved quality of hearing as you get older, because one of the main things that we lose is flexibility. We lose our balance, we fall, we have knee pain, we have hearing loss. So if you do your balancing, I feel that it will prevent dizziness and a lot of vertigo that you get as we get older. So we're going to try a little bit of balancing. This is called Vrikshasana. Many of you would have done that. If you want to step away from the mat, do that. You can either have your foot on your ankle or your shin, not on your knee, or on your thigh, like this. This is called the Gupta Nadi. It goes straight from the inferior vena cava, comes down. So the blood flow goes straight to the heart. So it's got other benefits as well. And you could stand like this. Try to do as best as you can. Fix a gaze, maybe open out your trees. Think of your favorite trees and breathe. And hands to your heart, the other side. Again, ankle, shin, or thigh. And what I find really useful is to hold your heel inside your thigh. That helps you stay stable. And also just fix your gaze, your drishti, in one spot. Should be sthira and sukha, like our teacher was saying earlier, our speaker was saying earlier. You have to feel comfortable, you have to feel stable. And breathe. And release. Okay, next I'll do something that's really helpful for sinuses. I don't know why. I find it always releases my sinuses, but it's Garudasana. Don't ask me why that seems to connect. It's got like 258 bones and muscles that I used in this pose, but it seems to help us clear our sinuses and our breathing patterns. So the way I do this is, it's easy. Usually you just have to put your leg, right leg up, and then right arm underneath, left leg up, left arm underneath. But I break it down so that those of us that are not too flexible can still get some benefits from it. So the way I do that is first just do only the right leg, nothing else. Don't worry about your arms. Don't worry about anything else. Try to root down your left leg, lift your right leg as high as you can. Keep your left knee kind of flexible, not too tight. And then put your right leg around your left and try to kickstand it. And that's it. Just do that. And then just bend, go down, experiment with it, and release. That's all you need to do. And shake it out. Then do the same thing. Make your right leg really strong. Lift your left leg. And higher you lift, the more give you have to go around. If you lift it just here, you can't do this. But if you lift it up a little bit more, it's also good for your hips. You can go around a little bit deeper. Kickstand, breathe, and release. I am watching the time for those of you that are getting nervous. I know that we broke a little bit, but I will still stop at 5 o'clock. No worries, okay? Then what you do is to open out your neck and your back. So for that, you leave your legs alone, your right arm underneath your left, and then squeeze it, lift your elbows. So now you're using your shoulder blades to really pull and open out the backs of your lungs. And breathe. And lift your elbows up, move your arms away, and breathe. Nothing else except your right arm underneath your left. And release. Next, we'll do the last section, which is the left arm underneath the right. And squeeze, lift your elbows up. Really, you could even bend your back to really release that back and all those tendons, pushing yourself away. And breathe. Last section, of course, is to put the two together. And that's where I feel like you can get a lot out of the pose, but many of us may not do a good job with it because we're not as flexible or we don't have a good balance. But this way, at least you've addressed different parts of it and you get the same benefits. So then you go like this and like this and breathe and bend. And hold for 3. 1001, 1002, 1003, and release. Next, we'll do the other one, Garudasana. The Garuda is one of my favorite gods because he is really the vehicle for Vishnu. And so when we're in trouble, the legend is that we just pray to Garuda. And Vishnu is right there. He's always ready to take Vishnu, and he just comes and he rescues us from our difficulties. And release. 1001, 1002, and 1003. Next we'll come to seated pose, or maybe, yeah, let's do my other favorite pose, which is also great for your hips and so let's come back to downward facing dog. We'll do Kapotasana, which is pigeon pose. Lift your right leg up and bring your right knee to your right wrist. And you could just lengthen the back of your left leg and straighten and look up like a proud pigeon. If you feel pretty comfortable, try to make your right shin parallel to the edge of your mat. So let me see if you can, I don't know if you can see me. Here I have my right shin parallel to the mat. And then you lift up, hold, and then gently release.
Are we gonna do some spaghetti?
Yeah. Or just a piece of the fish, man.
Can you put yourselves on mute, please?
Yeah.
Can you please put
That would
yourselves
work,
on
yes.
mute?
Just do the spaghetti.
And I got turkey meatballs.
Yeah, that would work.
Please mute yourself if you are not the speaker or presenter.
Then we come back to downward facing dog. Lift your leg and your left knee to your left wrist. Straighten your right leg and bring the left shin parallel to the mat, just like that if you can. If not, that's fine. Open your chest and bend down and just relax. This is again a great pose to open out your hips and really relax yourself. The other thing that, like I said, is a lot of our problems are about our back, our hips, and our knees. So I'd like all of us to just come up to seated like this. This is a great meditative prayer pose. And this is awesome for when we walk a lot, we have plantar fasciitis. So you notice how I curl my toes like this and sit like this. So the arches are given a chance to stretch. We have the habit of wearing really nice shoes, but that's actually very unnatural for the human body. Of course, in Minnesota, we can't help it. We have to wear shoes because it's so cold. But our legs are meant for being, open. And yoga is a good chance, at least for that 1 hour, when we don't wear socks, when we don't wear shoes, and we allow those nerve endings to behave the way they're supposed to do it. If you want to meditate like this, this is a great pose for even after meals, to sit like this and meditate until your feet start, complaining a little bit, then you can stop. But what I usually like to do is to sit like this and breathe. And you could even meditate like this. And it also helps your knees when you strengthen your calves and your shin thighs. So once you have really strong thighs, your knees don't get punished for all the weight. So if you have a strong core and your thighs, then your knees last longer. And this pose is supposed to help your knees a little bit. This is called Vajrasana, diamond pose, which is good for digestion. This is the one pose you can practice after food. And oh my gosh, it's already time. Then Supta Vajrasana is really helpful for stretching our thighs. So the way I like to do it is you could just do this and you can just stretch it out like this. If you feel that you have a little more, this is hard to come in and out of, but if you can go down and just lay here for about 30 seconds or so. It's a great pose. It's called Supta Vajrasana or saddle pose also. Okay, then for the last 3 minutes, what I'd like to do is to just lay flat on your back. As you know, yoga is very, very very rich. So I suggest you try to practice it either in a class or just Google, videos. There are apps for yoga that really give us opportunities to do yoga the way we want to do it. That helps you be in control. If you want just 10 minutes and you want to just focus on your wrists, for example, you can do that in an app. You can email me. I can give you my experiences on what I find really good for different kinds of issues. And but the key is it allows you to go inward, and focus on yourself, become better in what you really want to do better in. So that's my advice. So let's lay on our back and lay the legs long. This is another one that I love to do every day. It helps you sleep better too. So bring your right knee to your chest and squeeze and release. Left leg to your chest and release. Both knees. Rotate your knees. Lift the legs up. This is legs up the wall. There's a whole series of inversions that we will not go into. And lay the legs long. And we will do 1 minute of Shavasana. Close your eyes and breathe. Don't skip Shavasana. It's a very important part of the practice. It allows us to reap all the benefits of all the yogic poses that we did, any of the tendons that we stretched, any of the subtle connections of the mind and body and the spirit that we've experienced during this pose. Use your breath. Let your breath become silky soft. You don't have to breathe deeply. Just let it fall into its natural sequence and natural cadence. And when you're ready, come up to seated. Thank you all for letting me guide you through these practices and share with you something that I love. I clearly enjoy it and I cannot stop talking about it. I can do a lot of yoga every time, but I try to keep to my time limit. Thanks again. I'm grateful to be able to do yoga with you on this important day.
Maithili ji, if I may share very quickly, 2 years ago, I developed slight back pain. And then I tried to figure out the root cause because I was using my laptop on the floor. So I was bending forward. So I kind of figured out the root cause. And the Susupta Vajrasana you said, that is something I devised on my own. I didn't know that it belonged to a book somewhere. And I was doing exactly what he said, actually. Lying on the back.
That's the intelligence that you were talking about, which is when you go inside, you'll be amazed at how much your body understands and knows. And, I just feel like, yes, once you're tuned into your body, you allow yourself to heal because all that the body wants to do is to heal itself. So the minute you give it a chance, it will try to heal itself.
That's how I interpret Aham Brahmasmi, actually, that at the end of the day, you derive on your own, you're on the path, after you've heard everybody. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maithili ji, for a wonderful session. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker here. This will be a pranayama, breathing exercise by Sushmi ji. I'll hand over to Sushmi ji now.
All right, thank you so much. Can you hear me all?
Yes.
I've enjoyed so far what we've done. So to the predecessors, thank you for the segue and setting it up perfectly. If it's okay, we can go back to the view that we had with Mike, which is, if I could see everyone in the center. I don't think I have a slide presentation, so I'm okay with moving out the slide presentation. All right, so Thank you, Mike, for getting us moving. And if I may suggest, there are two postures we can pick before I begin both the talk and the practice of the pranayama. The posture is very important in selecting and knowing about pranayama. So already the definition has been given to us. I'm going to try to skip the theory aspect and try to spend maybe a little bit more time in the practical aspect, only in the interest of time. So the two postures, or there are multiple, but there are two postures recommended, is if we can sit in a sukhasana where the head, neck, and trunk are in a straight line. We could do that while sitting in any which way. Sitting on the edge of a chair or a bed is also fine. Sitting on a chair with a straight back is also fine. Sitting with our back to the wall is also fine. How we sit is not necessarily that, which pose we choose is not necessarily that critical. The important thing is that we should first find our head, neck, and trunk to be in a straight line. And it's, for scientific reasons, our windpipe is, as you know, straight. So we want to make sure that we are in the correct posture. So that's the first thing. Additional thing about the posture for those of you who have chosen to sit on the floor is, if maybe not today, if you don't have it, but for future practice, I would suggest is if you could take a mat, some sort of a seating mat. I don't know if you're able to see, I have these folding blankets. So if you're able to find a folding blanket and try to place it underneath your seat such that your seat is a little bit higher than your knees. What that does is that props the hips higher and the spine is automatically straight, or in yogic languages it's neutral, because it's never straight. There's a S at the top and there's a S at the bottom. So the idea is if we can prop our hips higher than our knees, and when we prop our hips higher than the knees, if our knees are not flexible, that's okay. We can place cushions or pillows underneath our knees so they're not dangling in the air. Why am I spending time in making sure that we have our posture correct? Because I'm assuming that we would like to be able to sit in meditation for 30 minutes or longer, or be able to do pranayama for 30 minutes or longer. So if our posture is good and comfortable, then the mind doesn't distract us from doing what we have set out to do. So now with our posture being comfortable, something that we can tell our mind, we're going to stick in this for a little while. I invite you to join me in a couple experiments. So if you wouldn't mind, take your left finger and place it right below your left nostril. And see what you feel. And then you can take the right finger, place it below the right nostril. And release, come back. I'm sure you were able to feel at least in one of the nostrils, either the warm air or the cool air, the inhalation or the exhalation. And that's it. That's what breath is. It's a vehicle between body and mind. It is that subtle aspect of us, our bodies, of yoga that Prabhatji was talking in the beginning. So we started with what Mike just did, which was in our physical space, our bones and muscles and so on. And now breath we can't see, but we can feel. And this breath is what is the therapeutic part of our journey from here on. So there's a lot of breaths that are available to us, and some work and some don't. I'll start with the basic inhalation and exhalation first. So how about I'm going to put our timer. You don't have to do this. I will do this. I will put our timer for 1 minute, and the exercise of this 1 minute timer is to count how many breaths you took in this 1 minute. Nobody has to share. You keep that information personal to you. However, I request that you give it your best try. So I'm turning on the clock now. And please time yourself, how many breaths you were able to take. All right, whatever the count was, you can keep that to yourself as a baseline. And now we're going to do some pranayama techniques. So pranayama, once again, for revision, is basically techniques of breath regulation so that we can extend the life force. Because without pran, it's the breathing that distinguishes whether we are alive or not. So if we don't feel what we did in the beginning, we're not alive, right? That's the single most factor of whether we are alive or not. In fact, our cultures and traditions were so in tune with this concept that when somebody passed away, it was said, pran nikal gaye, means they are dead. It was so part of our day-to-day vocabulary. So whatever was your baseline, you must have been able to count, for some people 7 breaths, for some 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. Each of those numbers has a significance, but obviously in today's time, we won't be able to dig deeper into that. We are going to start with a few breaths of inhalation and exhalation, and then we are going to do Anulom Vilom as the breathing technique for today. So how do we do inhalation and exhalation? I'm going to guide us through it. So we will do 3 breaths of inhalation and 3 breaths of exhalation. For inhalation, try to breathe from the base of the spine up. And as you inhale up, notice how far or low your breath makes it. And then exhale down from wherever that point was. And if you've already moved on to the second breath, do the same thing, inhaling from the base of the spine. And if you're able to go to the crown of the head, excellent. But if not, that's not bad also. You can exhale from wherever you were able to go till and had the urge to exhale. And release. And we'll do just a few more breaths together before we move on to the very traditional Anulom Vilom. And for the sake of time, I'm not doing the famous Kapalbhati, which maybe we can cover tomorrow because I have a class tomorrow also. So go ahead, place one hand, left or right, doesn't matter, on your chest, and then one hand below the navel. And again, we will try to breathe, but the purpose of this prop of our hands is to assess how deep our breath is. So the exercise that we just did prior to this, the purpose of that was to assess the length of our breath. And now we're assessing the depth of our breath. So go ahead, inhale and exhale. The hand on the chest shouldn't move. The hand on the navel or below the navel should move. I'm just trying to break the science and the mechanics of breathing. Take a few breaths here. And if this is comfortable and peaceful for you, you can remove the hands and continue for 1 or 2 or 3 breaths, trying to observe your own breath. The breath should have a few qualities. Quality number 1, breath should be soundless. Breath should be deep. Breath should be smooth. Smooth means what? Inhalation should merge into exhalation, and exhalation in inhalation. Breath should be like a wave, the wave that comes on the ocean shore, meaning it shouldn't be erratic. Breath should be 3-dimensional. What does 3-dimensional mean? It means that the breath should be taken from the top of the diaphragm to the base of the diaphragm, from the left of the diaphragm to the right of the diaphragm, and from the front of the diaphragm to the back of the diaphragm. These are the 5 qualities of the breath. So if you're finding this comfortable, continue with 1 or 2 more breaths. Feeling joyful that just a little bit ago we discovered the flexibility and the strength in our body through the asanas. And now we're discovering the subtle aspect of our body, the subtler body, the prana shakti. And slowly coming back to neutral from the inward focus of the breath to the outward focus. Breath, to be present with the breath, we have to go inward. It can't occur outside. But bringing our attention outward and getting ready to do the last and final breath together, which is the Anulom Vilom, a very popular technique of breathing exercises. There are many ways of doing Anulom Vilom, but I'll pick the most commonly known or basic one. So take our left thumb and the 2 middle fingers, go ahead and plug the left nostril with the left thumb and exhale through the right nostril. Remember your depth, remember your length, remember all those qualities. Go ahead with mindful of those, exhale. Why exhale first? Because we always empty the container first before we can fill it with goodies. Goodies here is what? Prana, prana shakti. Inhaling from the right nostril now, and then plugging the 2, using the 2 fingers, plugging the right nostril. Getting ready to exhale from the left. And repeating, so inhaling from the left. And exhaling. And you can monitor internally, you can monitor that length, that count we did in the beginning. And keep repeating slowly, alternating. This is channel purification. I'm not getting into the nadis. The deeper the breath, the calmer the mind. The calmer the mind, the focus the mind. This is the simple formula. So if we are having a rough day and we want to turn it around, this is the practice. Calming the breath, deepening the breath. Just slowly, even though we don't have our hands on below the navel in that one experiment that we did of props, you can still, with the eye of the mind, you can Extend the diaphragm, making optimal use of that diaphragm muscle. Like I always tell in my yoga class to my students, we are very good at deals and finding value. This is where we need to use that skill. We have been gifted by the divine with a container that can fill in a lot of prana shakti. Every day, we should be greedy to fill it up to its optimal. And I continue alternating my breath. And slowly releasing the hands, bringing them to the knees. If in the process your eyes had closed and you feel calmer, that means your mind and breath were together. If it is kind of what it was 20 minutes ago, there could be various reasons, but one of the reasons likely to be is that the mind and the breath were not together. With that, gently rub the palms. If your eyes were closed, open them in the warmth of the palms. I pray to the divinity in you and thank you for practicing with me. I thank I Am for giving me this opportunity and to all of you for joining and listening. Thank you.
Can I ask a very quick question, Sushma-ji?
Yes.
Even in the simplest of forms, Anulom Bilom, as you had us practice along with you yourself, should we maintain any kind of ratio to start out with, in terms of that inhale, hold, and exhale?
There are many different ratios that could be. I would suggest if you're the answer would be slightly different if you have been practicing, but if you're a beginner, I would say know your own breath capacity first. Hurriedly overdoing can also have some adverse effects. So remember, assessing a capacity in the beginning, that should guide us how much we can and can't do. So even though I made the remark that we want to fill our container to its optimal capacity, if our capacity right now is at 10 and we have the ability of 100, we don't want to go from 10 to 100 right away. We want to take baby steps and slowly get there. So that's a very good question and thank you for asking. So the right answer is that kind of assess initially with your own capacity first and not get into the ratio.
Your own teacher, once again. Be your own teacher. So what I read, what I have heard is that a man's lung capacity on average is 5.8 liters, let's say about 6 liters. For
Yes.
a woman, about 4.5 or 4.6 liters.
Yes.
And typically only 50% gets recycled in our breath and 25% has to be retained for lung not to collapse. So
Right.
that 25% that doesn't get recycled with these techniques, that much of more of pran, we will be really putting in our body, so to speak, if we can practice these
Correct.
pranayams.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there are no more questions, I hand it over back to the next speaker.
That would be Arvind ji.
Thank you, Sushma-ji. I would like to share the screen again. I will pass on to next speaker. It's a meditation by Arvind Nayak. Arvind Nayak, that's for you now.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me and hear me?
Mm,
You may, if you stop sharing and pin my picture, that would be.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you, Arvind ji.
Okay, great. Okay, great. All right. Namaste. Namaste, everyone, and wish you a very happy International Day of Yoga, which is a wonderful way to get the knowledge, which is typically we don't focus on. We focus on a lot of external knowledge, and yoga is the way of the inward knowledge, what we call Paravidya. So, and we have learned a lot already. So if you could stop sharing, Mukund or whoever, that will be great. That way people can see me.
Mukund, can you stop sharing, please? Oh, I think you're watching somebody else's screen.
No, that's not my screen. I think somebody else's screen.
Okay.
Okay, while you work it out, I'm just going to introduce the science of spirituality. So I'm still a student of yoga and meditation specifically, and I have a privilege of working with many of you, especially the esteemed panel speakers here. So I've learned a lot from all of you. And I've been practicing meditation under the guidance of my teacher, Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj. So Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj is a spiritual master and a scientist who has achieved mastery in both this physical science, as he's a scientist and engineer, as well as in the spirituality. And he's guiding hundreds of thousands of people around the world. He has written lots of books on meditation, and what we also call internally called Search of Yoga. Essentially, it's the yoga of attention. And being a scientist, he explains it in a very logical way and has been helping many thousands around the world transform their life. Science of Spirituality, it's an organization which leads many meditations under the guidance. It'll be good if everybody can hear me. That way, there's no disturbance. Thank you so much. So Science of Spirituality is a global spiritual organization with around 3,000 centers around the world. And Minneapolis is one of those centers. And I'm very happy to be serving the center and the people who come and meditate, along with helping myself learn meditation. So what is the science? The reason the word attracted me to science is because I come from engineering background myself. I'm an electronics telecommunication engineer who later on in my career became more like computer science and computer engineering, and then now into data architecture. So everything that I understood in my life, what I've learned is through a logical explanation. It was whenever somebody said, oh, you have to just believe it, I had a hard time with that. So if someone can explain logics and a proper philosophy behind it and reason for everything, then it makes more sense. And that's what happened when I came to Science and Spirituality. A lot of questions that were there in my mind when I heard about yoga and meditation and other spiritual practices, they kept resolving one by one through a logical explanation. And so if you look at the definition of yoga, which is, and thanks to many ancient spiritual masters who actually brought the practice of yoga, one of them was the Yoga Sutras from Patanjali. Now, Patanjali said about yoga in a very simple word, and is only in second verse. He said, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the restraining of the activities of the mind. So our effort is focused on how do we restrain the activities of the mind, which is we call thoughts, desires, all kinds of vrittis, emotions, anger, jealousies, and so many of them. We can name some of them, but many of them are unknown. And the fact that our mind is constantly active is the challenge of the yoga. Now, we have to start somewhere. So many times we have to start from our physical body, because our body and the ailments of the body are also cause of the mind and the vrittis in the mind. We get hungry and all of a sudden we're looking for food. And guess what our mind loves? junk food. So we have to control that. We also, as we age, as beautifully Maithili and Sushmi or explained us how we can improve our body functions so that they are not creating obstructions in the practice of yoga. We make them like a well-oiled machine so that they are helping and not becoming an obstruction. Also, in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga is described as samatvam yoga uchyate, which means evenness of mind is yoga. So evenness of mind or calmness of mind or the mind with no vrittis. Now, it doesn't mean we should not think at all. As we live in this world, as we do our karma, as we do our responsibility, we have to think. Sometimes we have to make decisions. Should I, do this job or that job? Should I go this way or that way? And so those are normal. Those are not considered in the way of your practice of yoga. But when we get attached to something, and when we get overly desireful or we get upset with something, now we're creating unnecessary vrittis, and they become in our way of yoga practice. Yoga is also called as yoga karmasu kaushalam, which means whatever we do, whatever, including the speech, the talk, the learning, the action, the job we do, if we can get a higher skill in that, it's also a part of yoga. So yoga doesn't just talk about forget everything, just be one with God, and then you don't have to worry about the world. That's not what it is. What I have learned in the science of spirituality is also to be excelling in our day-to-day responsibilities. So today is a Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everyone. As fathers, we want to be the best father we can. As sons, we want to be the best sons. As brother, sister, and husband, wife, all of the roles we play, we can do better and better and as best we can. And the effort to make that best is part of the yoga practice as well. One of the epicenter of the science of spirituality knowledge is that each and every living being, especially human being, and I'll say that because as a human being, we have the capacity to be aware of our potential. The saints and mystics tell us that, and I'm going to quote here my teacher, Sant Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj. He says, within us lies the unlimited power and energy of the empowered soul. We have soul. We don't have soul, actually. We are soul. And if we look at our day-to-day life, we are constantly looking at ourselves in the mirror and we say, okay, this is me. If somebody asks, what's your name? You give your name, your qualifications, maybe your country, maybe what language you speak, maybe your historical background, like maybe your gotras, and like in the Hindu tradition, there are so many ways we can identify. And in the modern time, you may be one of the ones who like this way, or maybe you like certain things and not like certain things. Maybe you like certain sports, or maybe you have a favorite team. And there's just a million ways of identifying yourself. Now, all of that is okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but know that all of them are temporary. They're not permanent identity. Our true identity, what saints and mystics tell us, is that we are Atman, or the soul. Now, we know that intellectually, many of us know that intellectually. It has been repeated in many traditions, not just the Hindu tradition, and many other traditions also recognize that we are soul. In fact, it's very hard to find someone who doesn't believe that they are soul, because they know that underneath all of the body, there is some life force, and that's what I am. And this body is temporary. Even the physical science tells us that the physical body is changing constantly. In fact, I was shocked to hear one of the articles that said every 7 years, the entire set of our body cells are different. So if you had a 7-year-old person, you were what you saw 7-year-old, you look at yourself, none of those cells exist anymore. So entire body is completely replaced. So you have a different body. But some of the mental, the subtle things that Prabhuji talked about, they are with you, the memories are with you. And those those are also temporary. because over time, even they disappear. And ultimately, long-term, what remains is the soul. Now, you don't have to wait for everything to disappear and then you realize with your soul, because that may take millions of years. And in the meanwhile, you'll be suffering through the problems of this life because of the false identity. If you think you're just the body, guess what happens when your body has a problem? Well, we get devastated. We feel like, oh my goodness, if someone we knew and they now with COVID, so many of us have lost many of our near and dear ones. We think that's our end of our world. But what do we do if we have lost them? But if you realize that we are soul, we realize they are also soul. And then what hits you is that we are eternal. And this body is a temporary vesture. So our focus in the spiritual realm is to do the practices which help us realize our true identity. And that includes physical exercises and pranayama, but mainly the meditation. Why do we do the meditation? Is when we invert our attention within. When we invert our attention from the outer world, concentrate within, and withdraw from all the bodily activity, all the physical activity, and slowly all the mental activities. If we can do that even for a few minutes, if we get the inkling, we experience tremendous amount of light. Now, in some of the Hindu traditions, we use the Gayatri mantra, which says that within us is the light, bright sun, and we should meditate on it. It is actually, we have so much light within us that is equivalent to thousands and thousands of suns. And we don't experience that on a day-to-day basis because our attention is tuned with our senses, which are tuned with the outer subjects. So even when we say, who am I? We look at the mirror to say, okay, am I looking okay? Am I dressed okay? And our attention only remains on the surface. But meditation practices allows us to constantly and regularly withdraw from the outer senses, withdraw from the outer subjects, focus within, and then, so stilling the body is important. We talked about stillness through the exercises and yoga. We're trying to get to a state of stillness. And we get to the state of stilling a body, stilling the senses, which means we do not allow any senses to feed our mind. And that's important because they trigger a lot of things. The word pratyahara was used, and then we concentrate. That's the part of dharana, which is we have to concentrate within. You cannot just peeping into just like a shopping experience. You look in one product after another product. That's not what we're doing here. We invert within and we keep our attention there. Now that's hard because our mind is fickle. Once we are able to control the mind with a practice and with the help of the guru, there is a need for guru. And I'll tell you, because many times people practice by YouTube and read a book and you try a few things and then you realize that, oh my goodness, this is hard. I'm not seeing any light. Maybe not for me. And then you give up. The problem is that there are certain inner growth that needs to happen. There's some inner unlocking of the karma that needs to happen, which only an enlightened guru can do. So the role of the guru is extremely important. Many times we don't realize in the beginning, and we don't have to jump to a guru right away, but only when you reach that state, when you realize that I have done my best and I'm still not making progress, you realize that you need the guru. And this is true with everything that you do. Even the yoga, I hope that we don't practice some of those complex postures without having a guidance from someone who knows how to do it, because you could be hurting yourself. And it's true with sports, that's true with any knowledge that we gain, even in the modern science. You just don't go to YouTube and do your PhDs. You need a guide. And that's true with spirituality even more. So my suggestion is that when you start practicing yoga, that you do your best first, try to find where you are. And at some point you see the need. And if you feel that I need the help, don't hesitate to get the help, because that's part of the spiritual path. So our teachings and the foundation of yoga says, what is it that by learning that you have achieved the purpose of life? There's a famous poet in our Indian tradition called Rahim. He says, Eke sadhe sab sadhe, sab sadhe sab jai. Rahima namulhi sichibo ulupalahi adhai. He's saying that in general, a mind try to win everything. We want to be rich, we want to be knowledgeable, we want to be popular, we want to be healthy, and then we chase these things one after the other. And we feel that if we can achieve more and more and more, the more success we'll be getting. But the saints and mystics have already given us a formula. They said, just achieve one thing and you will achieve everything. If you answer the question of, you have the master key, you can open all the locks. And that knowledge is what we were talking about when we talk about the yoga, or the true yoga of the soul. And even the Upanishads and the Vedas have been saying that what is it? There's a question. It says, what is it by knowing which everything is known? And the answer to that question is our soul. So we do not leave our regular practices. It doesn't mean that don't stop doing your job or stop taking care of family, but make sure you achieve the purpose of your life by knowing that you're a soul. And that's why we meditate. So I think enough about talking. I will be giving more details tomorrow. There are so many benefits of meditation, including the reduction of stress, increased focus, increased productivity, being able to deal with, increase our immune system. After me, Dr. Asawari will be speaking, and she'll be talking about immune system, how important it is in these times of coronavirus and diseases. And so meditation allows us to be stress-free, which addresses the cortisols, which are released when we are stressed, which actually hurt our immune system. And so meditation is also a way to prevent. Now, it's not a treatment, but if you practice on a regular basis, you will have a better immune system. So there are so many benefits, but the biggest benefit that we all should meditate and really is to experience ourselves. There's enough books about it, which talks about who we are, but unless we experience, unless you see the light yourself through your own inner eye, you will not have that inkling of who you are. You are already a soul. There's not a single human being who does not have the potential of being divine. Like, we're not talking about, there's a good, there's a better, and there's best and excellent, and then there's divine. So we all have divine potential. And what it means is that we can lead a life free from any suffering, any pain, and serve others who need it. It's not just for ourselves. When you connect with the divinity within, you cannot keep it to yourself. You will be definitely helping others. There's no other way you can use that knowledge. It will flow out of you. In fact, there is no you anymore. It's only God that is working through your vehicle or your instrument. And that is the state of what we want to be in. And now let's look at the technique of meditation. How do you meditate? Close your eyes, which is, okay, first still the body. Find a comfortable position. You've learned so many about positions. Find a comfortable position where you're sitting in your chair. Find a comfortable position where your back is straight, you're awake. Only need is relax and awake, and then slowly, gently close your 5 senses. So you close your eyes gently. That takes care of your 83% of distraction from the outer world. You sit in a quiet room. That takes another 13%. And taste, smell, and touch. You don't touch anyone. So let's close our eyes. Once you close your eyes, look in front of you. Now you may wonder, like, how do I look while your eyes are closed? Yes. Try to see what you're seeing once your eyes are closed. What you're seeing then is not the outer eyes, but is the inner eye. The eye located between and behind the eyebrows, also known as Ajna Chakra, 6th energy center, or the inner eye, or the Shiva Netra. That is the conscious doorway to the inner spiritual region. Initially, you see darkness there. So just focus there, whatever you see. Initially, you may see darkness, and your mind may send thoughts of past, future, friends, or family. What you do is repeat a mantra or God's name or any calming word if you're not a religious person. You can repeat peace, you can repeat Om, you can repeat whatever mantra that you're dear to you. Gently repeat the mantra or the God's name in your mind. What it does, it starts stilling the mind. There's a science behind it, which I will explain tomorrow, but just let it just repeat. At this time, you can let your body be still and let it function normally. Your breathing can go normally. You don't have to worry about any other thing. Just focus in front of you. Keep your attention in the middle and repeat God's name or a calming word. Gently, slowly, and lovingly. If you will focus there for a few minutes, I'll meditate for about 3-4 minutes. And if your mind wanders, bring it back gently and continue repeating. Continue enjoying whatever you see. If you see lights, if you see inner vistas, just enjoy that experience without any analysis. So we'll sit for a few minutes and I'll get you out of meditation at that time. Thank you. Slowly and gently come out of meditation. Just make sure that you do not get up and do anything because your concentration could be at your forehead. So I hope that you got introduced to this simple technique of meditation that you can practice anytime. We'll be giving more detailed session tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please join using the Zoom link that will be sent to the IM. And I want to thank the IAM and all the organizers, as well as thank the Science of Spirituality teachings and all the masters who have brought us the knowledge of yoga. With that, I pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvindji. It was like we went into a different world. But we'll go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Aswari Manvikar. Aswari Manvikar, this is for, I'll take it from you.
Thank you, Mukunj. Thank you, IAM, for giving this wonderful opportunity to present on today. This is a wonderful occasion to present about Ayurveda, because I really feel Ayurveda and yoga, they are the part of the same coin. So the two sides of the same coin. And if you really try to find out how Ayurveda came into existence, so thousands of years ago, when people were having a lot of health issues and pain and suffering, they were trying to find out how to get rid of it. And at that point of time, the spiritual masters, they did a meditation in order to find out who we are, what is our connection to the nature, and how that nature can help us to heal. That's how really the Ayurveda, the science of Ayurveda originated. It came to the earth for helping everybody. So there is so much connection, so much similarity in yoga as well as Ayurveda. Yoga is yogastu chitta vritti nirodha. So its main aim is to be able to really understand the thoughts and to be able to bring them to, like make them more stable and more spiritual aspect or more spiritual growth. And when we try to look at Ayurveda's goal, it's really more important for physical, mental, emotional health. So these two, if we can integrate together in everyday's practice, we can really achieve the goal of wellness. And this year, actually, for Yoga Day, the International Yoga Day, the theme is Yoga for Wellness. So I feel it really is important to use these two amazing sciences together. And as Arvindji was saying about the logic, right? And the reasoning, that is the really reason I love Ayurveda and both yoga both, because they have really good foundation and there is a logic behind it. So let me share the screen and let me introduce about myself a little bit. I'm Dr. Aswari Manvikar. I did my master's in Ayurvedic medicine from University of Pune in 2000. And then I was working as at a cancer research center, which was an integrative research center back in India. I was also faculty at Ayurvedic College for the BAMS students. And then I came to United States about 18 years ago. So I have been a part of Minnesota more than 15 years, and I teach at the University of Minnesota. I definitely have my practice, and I also decided to create an institute where students can learn more about Ayurveda. So they do not need to fly or go somewhere else in order to learn this amazing healing modality here in the Twin Cities. So let me share the screen, and then we'll talk about the immunity. I feel this is one of the most important topic looking at the current situation. And it's not only about the pandemic we are in, it is really very important to understand and acknowledge how to build the immunity in general to stay away from any disease. And there is also another pandemic that is already coming and it's there, which is about autoimmune diseases. So I feel this is a very important topic and we'll get into it in a minute. So today I really want to present what is immunity, what is the importance of immunity, why should we really care to think and respect our bodies and mind and work and like to practice in order to increase our immunity. How Ayurveda looks at the immunity improvement. So there are special tools and techniques and different ideas and logic behind how to increase the immunity. And then we'll talk about the actual practical tips to improve our immunity. So let's see what is immunity. The immune system is the body's natural defense system. So it does not reside in one single part of the body. It is really made up of the network of the cells and the molecules and tissues and organs working together to protect the body. So this is a very intricate system. It's not about only one organ. It really about working the whole body and mind together in order to be able to deal with the outer situation as well as the inner world. So whenever there are any kind of imbalances, how to let go of those imbalances and how to heal from that. So each of these elements, they really play a very important role in how the immune system works and its function as a whole. Many times when we think about the immunity, definitely the vaccination is one of the important aspects. It can help us to increase the immunity, but it is not going to bring the whole idea of immunity because it can stay there for some time. We need to look at long-term immunity. So how to build that long-term resilience and how to create a long-term immunity. So we look at different ways, what I really think about and how we can really acknowledge those things and work upon those things. So when we look at various diseases and try to find out where they are coming from, there are thousands of diseases. There are so many different names and syndromes. So most of the times we see everything that we can see up. So as in yoga, we try to see everything. Like typically the human nature is to see everything which is outward and not really inward. Similarly, we see everything that shows as a symptom, which is outward, but not really going inward and try to find out what are the root causes behind all of the symptoms, the diseases which are really taking place. So Ayurveda really goes and tries to find out what are the root causes for every single health issue that comes. And then
There is some noise coming. Can we mute? I think a couple of people are not muted, so we're getting some disturbance. So thank you.
Okay. Can you please mute yourself? Thank you. So when all those things really boil down, where all these diseases are coming from, so most importantly, due to the imbalance in the mind and body, and also unhealthy tissues and reduced immunity. So everything again boils down to the immunity. So how to increase the immunity and what are the main types of the immunity and how Ayurveda acknowledges it. So in Ayurveda, there is a word called as bala or vyadhikshamatva, which is called as strength. We can translate it as a strength. So there is sahaja and there is kalakruta. So sahaja means innate. So this is the innate immunity that is natural, that we inherit from our parents at the time of birth as a part of our DNAs. And then adoptive or yukti kruta. Yukti, yojana, that means logic. We use the logic in order to acquire the immunity. So how do we acquire this immunity? Ayurveda uses 5-fold interventions. So using appropriate diet, lifestyle, doing proper exercises, detoxification, cleansing, making sure that you get rid of the toxins which are building up throughout our life, and using herbs which can help us to rejuvenate the tissues. So ultimately, the goal is to really balance our doshas, to balance our systems, to increase our digestive fire, and to be able to get rid of the toxins that we build up as a day-to-day life. And then make sure that we take care of every single tissue to boost its health. So immunity is really at the end of this tunnel. So this is like an essence, which is called as OJAS, OJAS. It's the essence of all the tissues when they are nurtured, nourished properly. So it's really important to look at every single aspect to acquire good immunity. And it's very interesting that this immunity really depends on every single individual. It also depends on individual's prakriti, so your innate nature, the age. So for example, when we are young, the first 16 years of the age is more kapha. So kapha is growing, building, so the tissues are building. So that time we have really wonderful, great immunity. So typically they do not fall sick a lot. And as we start getting older, we start getting more and more vata. So after the age of 60, we start building more vata, which is more degenerative. So the drying and cold and rough force, or it is one of doshas, so which starts really reducing the juices from our body, which start depleting the tissue health and then ultimately the immunity. So typically when we see various diseases, how do they come and when do they appear? Typically they start appearing after 45, 50 age of our life, because that's the time when our body starts really more degeneration than actual regeneration of the tissues. So this immunity depends on the location where we live. It depends also on the seasons. So for example, if you look at Hemant Rutu, which is about November, December, so that's the time when our Agni, our digestive fire is really very, very strong. So the foods that we eat, we can digest them correctly. They do not accumulate, they do not make metabolic toxins. And that's how our immunity is really nice. And then later on, typically we see that during Vasant Rutu or during the spring, people start having allergies. During fall, people have allergies. During the summer, there are some other issues people go through. But when you look at that specific season, which is November, December, which is from Ayurvedic standpoint called as Hemant Rutu, is the best season when every single person has really good immunity. So again, when we look at overall immunity and its types, there is innate, so something that we have got through our parents, inherited, and adoptive. So we cannot change the innate because we already have got that at the time of the birth. So what we can really do in order to increase the immunity is to work on these fivefold interventions. Looking at diet, lifestyle, exercise, detox, and rejuvenative herbs can help us to increase our immunity. Again, age, location, season, we cannot change. It is not in our hands. So these two immune systems, they actually work together. And they help us to create the antibodies to protect the body from any invaders. So anything that comes from outside in the body, so it is not only related to any organism, so not just the viruses and bacteria, but any even food, right? When we eat food, take thoughts in, or any sensory experiences, inside our body, it needs to be digested. If those things are not digested, they become toxic to the mind and body. And then when there is a lot of buildup of the toxins, our cells, they start losing their intelligence, which is their inner ability to really, like regenerate. And then they start really creating more internal toxins, and they start creating autoimmune responses. So when we look at the innate immunity, the antibodies are developed by cells exposed to the invaders. That's how this immunity really works, or it is activated. And when we look at the acquired immune system, it keeps changing throughout the life. So we do have control there, and we can increase the immunity by using those tools and techniques. So when we are looking at this adoptive or acquired, the fivefold interventions, and definitely there is a place for immunization in order to really increase the immunity. Immunizations are really, or vaccinations are very helpful for specific organisms. So they can help us to increase our immunity if we get any infection with those organisms. Along with that, we definitely need to look at these other factors, which are called as a fivefold interventions, because you never know that whether you will get only that infection or you might get some other issues, right? So you develop your immunity by taking one vaccine, but you might get affected with something else. So now let's see what is the importance, why it is, what is the significance, why it is so important. So without an immune system, our body cannot fight with outside things as well as harmful inside body changes. So what does this mean? That means everything, all the outside impact, any pathogens, bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, everything that comes from outside, we call it as krumi. And inside changes, so inside changes are mostly the inflammation due to the toxins, the digestive toxins that we have within the body. So there can be various manifestations. It can be thyroiditis. So the thyroid glands start getting inflamed. It can be rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, cancer. There are more than 80 different autoimmune diseases. So these are all internal changes body goes through, and that's how it creates imbalance and a lot of inflammation. So it cannot really work optimum, and the body cannot fight and cannot heal. So when we look at these autoimmune diseases, in which the immune system actually starts attacking its own tissues. So instead of helping our body to heal from outside organisms, it starts killing the own cells, causing widespread inflammation and tissue damage. And then it starts really affecting various vital organs. So these autoimmune diseases, they are actually the third most common diseases in the US. So the first being cancer, second being heart diseases, and the third one is the diseases which are related to the autoimmune responses. So if we see, it's about 5 to 8% of US population is actually impacted by these diseases, according to CDC. So it's important to boost the immunity to prevent, manage the diseases as well as the infections. So what is Ayurveda's perspective on immunity? How can we do this? So if you look at this infographic, our body, mind, and spirit, the soul, they are very well knit connected. So when we are trying to achieve the balance, when we are trying to look at the wellness and improving our immune system, it's very important to look at every single factor, every single factor that can affect our immunity. So when we think or when we look at our body, the physical body, the gut microbiome, or how our body can digest, metabolize everything that comes inside, is extremely important. And now actually there is a lot of evidence related to gut brain connection and why this microbiome is so important to take care of and how to heal from that. So if this is affected, then it can build toxins. So the first thing is very important to look at the physical body, how to heal from that. When we think about the mind, there are so many stressors every day in every single person's life, whether those are kids or those are old people. Everyone has stressors. The most common problems, mental health issues that we see are anxiety and depression. So it's really important to calm down the mind. So the meditation that we did just now, we should be doing it day-to-day basis. And the spirit. So spirit is the innate DNA composition, which is the soul, everything that comes as a part of the heredity. So according to what Ayurveda says, is when we take the birth from our parents, we get energies and also dosha, like doshas. And there is also soul that enters from previous life. So that's how we get all of these as a part of our innate system. So when we are trying to improve the immunity, we need to understand this intricacy of mind, body, and spirit. And so how to improve digestion, how to increase and make the Agni, the digestive fire, really strong, how to improve the tissue health, so optimum tissues, how to make sure that all the vital organs, they are functioning properly, qualitatively, and also how to balance all the systems. Most of the times when we look at the autoimmune diseases, the endocrine system is affected. However, we need to balance out every single system in the body because all of these, they work hand in hand. You cannot separate any system from other system of the body. They are interdependent. So if our immune system is compromised, then we must ask ourselves why it is out of balance, why it is compromised. And then we must be willing to change the course to correct the underlying issues. So let's look at the five-fold Ayurveda approach to improve the immune system. First and most important aspect is diet. When the diet is wrong, the medicine is of no use. When the diet is correct, medicine is of no need. So in yoga also, we always say that Annamaya Kosha, or our body is made up of the external sheath, is made up of the Anna or food. So our mind, our body, everything is made up of food. So choosing the right foods, appropriate for the season, appropriate for each person, our Prakriti, our nature, our constitution, is important to improve all the functioning of the body. Lifestyle, having really good routine, trying to look at the circadian rhythms and trying to really correlate and make sure that our internal system is working along with the external outside environment. So when it's time in the evening about 6 to 10, there is more kapha. So kapha is one of the forces or energies which really makes you more stable and calm and grounding. So typically around 9:30, 10 o'clock, we should be going to bed instead of doing any other physical activity. So there is a lot of logic behind it, and there are lots of rules and regulations, but all of them, they are there in order for us to stay healthy. As Ayurveda's main goal is to stay healthy, prevent the problems before they come. The third approach is using herbs and spices, which have their own healing properties. Using them again appropriately with right dose, proper understanding is required. Doing the various exercises, proper yoga poses, and trying to bring the yoga pose in your body instead of really you trying to fit into that, which I feel is very important to understand, have that awareness about what our bodies can do and being in the present moment and not pushing it too much to get into a specific pose. So using all of those intelligence and tools and techniques are very important. And definitely doing yoga, other exercises also are equally important. However, every single time, what really boils down to is actually your individual system. So finding out who you are and then doing these exercises or yoga postures based off of that in order to complement your mind and body. Though we do all of these, though we follow these things, due to the seasons, due to the pesticides, due to the external environment, toxins outside, ultimately, we do accumulate some toxins in the body. So it is very important to get rid of those toxins. So the process is called as detoxification, to reset the entire system. So now let's look at some simple tips to improve the immunity. So when we look at the body and try to look at the routine, so there is a daily routine which is called as dinacharya, which is the extremely important day-to-day practice, having some discipline. Right? Yoga and Ayurveda both really talk about the discipline to the life. So rising early in the morning, doing like saying the Gayatri mantra if possible, doing the sun salutations, offering gratitude, doing oil massage in order to calm down the system. And the nerves, when we look at the nerves, they are right next to the skin. So when we do the oil massage, it really helps to calm down the nervous system. Fumigation, as we are talking about the pandemic and the external environment, we need to make sure that it is clean where we live. So we can do some dhoop. So basically taking some ajwain and burning them and creating a little bit of smoke inside the home can be really good in order to clear up the environment where we live. Using nasal drops, so we can use coconut oil or we can use ghee in order to calm down and also create a coating inside the nostrils. So the external organisms, even if they come, they will not attack your system directly. There will be some barrier there. So doing like using the nasal drops or at least oiling the nostrils before we go out is required. Gargling, making sure that everything that it enters the body through the nose and the throat. So make sure that you gargle every day in the morning. With hot water, you can add some turmeric powder to that. Steam inhalation, adding some eucalyptus oil during the spring season or during the winter is very important. Definitely during fall also, it's a great practice. I wouldn't really suggest this during the summer when it is very hot. So in Minnesota, definitely steam inhalation, I would say about 6 to 7 months, we should be doing it, as it is always, most of the times it is cold. And then try to follow the diet routine. So there needs to be a schedule for the meals every day. So our Agni, our digestive fire, starts igniting around that time, and then it is ready to digest the foods. Taking morning tea with ginger, try to add some healthy spices to the food that we cook. So this is not eating super spicy food. The idea is to get the optimum benefits of the spices, their inner healing capacity. So adding turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom in small amount so that they can help us to create the balance in the system. Just eating a small piece of ginger, just 1/4 inch, and then chew it and then take some water right after that. Take 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds right after the meal. So these things can really help us to remove the toxins and make sure that our Agni, our fire, is good, ready to digest the food that we eat. We really look at the diet as Parabrahma. So we look at it, the food, as a Brahman or Ishwar. So it's very important to offer the gratitude before we eat. Eating fresh, organic, cooked vegetables, adding ghee, honey, some seed mix, so sunflower seeds, or there are a lot of hemp seeds. So try to add more seeds to the daily diet. Try to have some soaked nuts, taking some almonds, soaking them ahead of time, remove the peel, remove the cover, and then eat that in the morning. Eat some dates. So all of these things are very, very nourishing. So they will help us to boost our digestive fire. They will also help us to increase our ojas, our inner nectar. And if possible, take the golden milk. So turmeric with warm milk. If you are not allergic, definitely cow's milk is the best because it has more sattva into it. And then when we are trying to look at the mind, its role in healing as well as increasing the immunity, sattvic diet, sattvic lifestyle, sattvic environment, satsanga, meeting people, talking to them, is very important. To have our thoughts aligned with our action day to day. Doing yoga, pranayam, meditation, looking at the technique that really resonates with us. Laughter. So many times there is so much stress people are going through, they really forget that this is the easiest thing, right? So try to laugh and enjoy every single moment and offer the gratitude as we are here on the earth, performing and doing everything properly. And definitely sound sleep. So good quality sleep is very important for healing. There are so many factors. This is not even scratching the surface of Ayurvedic healing system. I studied this more than 10 years and I feel I am the student of Ayurveda and I will always be the student of Ayurveda. So if any of you are interested into learning more about Ayurveda, understanding about your constitution, who you are, what is the diet that is good for you as a personalized diet, or any lifestyle, herbs, exercises, detox, or massages, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to learn more about Ayurvedic healing system and help others, definitely you can look at it as a professional development also. So these two are my websites, and this is my email ID, and my phone number is here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Aspariji. It was really fantastic information about Ayurveda and changing our lifestyle.
Thank you.
Let me share my screen here.
Mukund,
Can I ask a quick question? I know we are well over time, our allotted 2 hours, but quick one for Dr. Manvikar.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, you mentioned about between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. we are more likely to have kapha, and therefore we try to avoid certain kind of food. And and many of the practices that you talked about, we grew up with in India, being of Indian background, and many of the things that you mentioned as part of diet are part of my habits actually. The golden milk and the ginger and before, and the fennel seeds afterwards, and all that, and we all know that. But my question is, this. The evening time, like in India, we say don't eat cucumber, right? In the evening time, like khira, subah khaye hira, or dopahar khaye hira, sham khaye jeera. Like it can be damaging to your health if you eat in the evening, especially late evening. So my question is, if the environment changes, for example, we live in the US and we live in a controlled environment in our household here in terms of AC and heating and whatnot. Will that make a change? And the reason I ask is that my wife grew up in Ranchi, capital of Jharkhand. She said, I would not eat yogurt, homemade dahi, at home in the night, late night kind of thing. And she said, no, it doesn't matter. She has been eating all the time. And I started eating that yogurt all the time, and it doesn't hurt me. And of course, everybody is different, as you pointed out. But is there a difference due to environment, is my question really, essentially, in these practices, besides the human body, the individual body?
Right. Yeah. No, it's a really wonderful, very good question. And if we talk especially regarding the yogurt, each food has its own qualities. So if you look at the yogurt, whether it is homemade or if we get it from outside, it does have the quality to increase kapha, more secretions in the body. And that's the reason we should not be taking it in the evening, or we should not be taking it even during the spring season, because there is already a lot of kapha buildup in the body. So what happens if we keep eating that? So it increases more secretions inside the body, which can start clogging our system. So we are not able to really digest the food correctly. And it can also create the issues with the movement of all the nutrients to respected areas. So it cannot really give nutrition to that. So now, I like really your question that it doesn't affect you. So depending upon each person, it might be okay for you. So someone who has more vata and pitta, it will not really affect them a lot. If someone is already kapha, having nasal secretions, having any kapha related problems, it will definitely affect them. And also the amount, how much do you eat, is also very important. And how often do you eat? If you eat every single day, at night, during the winter also, there are definitely high chances that at some point there will be imbalance, and then it will show up as some respiratory related problem, or it will create some excessive secretions in the body, and you might develop some problem. I mean, for anybody, So there are some specific rules about some foods, whether no matter where you go, they will be the same. And in fact, I feel like in Minnesota, the weather is always cold. And that's how it's more important to look at this aspect, not to eat kheera or not to eat yogurt or anything that increases kapha at night, than if someone is living in Arizona or maybe Texas, where it is already dry.
My second quickie one is, you mentioned about the differences between a child, one is born with, probably perfect system, and slowly over time we, acquire, and especially after age of 45, as you mentioned, we start degenerating. The question is, we have also heard that as a child, you have not really developed the immune system in certain regards. So what is that difference? Because on one hand, a child is more protected. Maybe his system is balanced, between kapha, pitta, and vayu. On the other hand, they are more susceptible as well to certain disease or exposures in the environment. So just wanted to get some idea whether I understood it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So when we look at this age up until first 16 years, typically, there is more kapha, and that's how it really helps to increase the tissue health. So this being like the immunity is the end product of all the tissues. So they are getting fed, and that's how the immunity is increasing instead of decreasing. As regeneration does not happen later on, it starts decreasing automatically because the tissues are not getting enough nutrition what they need. So that is one aspect. And the second aspect is about really creating more digestive toxins because they are not exposed to the food that much. And there is not a lot of time that they have been eating those wrong foods. Like for example, if it's a kapha kid and eating, let's say, bananas or eating a lot of yogurt every day. So that might not have immediately any health problems because it has not passed that much time. And if the same practice keeps going on later on, so later that kid will start having issues because of the toxins which are built up during that time.
Thank you, Dr. Aswari. Mukund, let's close this session. I think this was a very nice session and question. We don't have enough time, but thank you all the speakers. Mukund, after your thanks, I like to take 1 minute.
Okay, Ramanku. Okay, thank you everyone. Having this wonderful session. I would like to thank Prabhatji for giving us a very good information about yoga, and also including Maithili for demonstrating the yoga which can create a magic in your body. I thank Sushmiji for giving us all the information about pranayama and making us do some pranayama activities. We learned from just by breathing we can control our whole life, and also move towards our achieving inner engineering. I would like to thank Arvindji for showing about the meditation where we can go into a different world. Just by sitting quiet and observing inner part of our body. Finally, I thank Dr. Manvikarji for giving us information about all diet, nutrition, detoxification, exercise, and everything, which is really, really important in this situation of pandemic. People are getting depressed. They eat a lot. They're sitting at home, stressed out. So this is a very good information. I hope everyone will take it, these sessions, as a new start of new phase of life. And finally, I thank all participants to spending time with us today. And final note is, please check out our IAM website for the events, multiple events happening tomorrow as well. With this, I would like to, close my my talk here, and I would hand over to Ram Uncle for the final note.
Can you give the gallery view so we can see everyone?
Mukund, can you stop sharing, please? It'll automatically give.
Okay, I think already thanks been done, but I think Dr. Aswari mentioned something which we have not done, which is laughter. At the end of the session, let's all laugh. This is what I had done with when I conduct the American meetings. I'm part of it. At the end of the thing, we have a laughter and everybody loves it. So why not we do that part right now? So open up whoever are, right now there, and let's have it 3 times, okay? All right. Ha 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 Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Uncle.
And attend tomorrow's session starting from the early mornings. He would be conducting from Hyderabad, India. And then, of course, our local people here, Sushmi and Arvind Nayak ji and Milan Mandir has a online, not online, actual program person. So try to attend if you can, because there you will get detailed 1-hour instructions. And have a great yoga day. But as everybody has mentioned, this is not a one day. Every day, yoga, meditation, pranayam should be part of your life. With that, happy International Yoga Day.
Thank you all.
Right.